Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy. Here we share new confessions every day.
He emptied our joint bank account and left me for a 20-year-old yoga instructor named Lexi. And he told me all of it in a single text. I was in the kitchen of our Seattle townhouse when it happened. It was a Thursday. Overcast. The kind of day where you can smell rain before it hits the pavement. My phone buzzed once, a short, sharp vibration. I was stirring oat milk into my coffee. I glanced down, expecting another calendar reminder or maybe one of those useless email promos from Crate and Barrel. But instead, it was him. Reed Montgomery. My husband of 8 years. I'm leaving. I've met someone. I'm moving to California with Lexi. She makes me feel alive again. I've already transferred everything out of our joint account. I hope someday you'll understand. Understand? Understand that you torched our marriage in a single paragraph and had the gall to sign it off like it was a goodbye note on a napkin? Understand that you stole not just my trust, but the financial foundation of our life? I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sipped my coffee. It was a little bitter. Needed more milk. Because here's the truth, I'd known something was off for months. Reed had started working late, but never seemed tired. He bought a second phone for work, but always kept it face down. He started using phrases like alignment, inner truth, and soul freedom, which would have been hilarious if it hadn't come with a midlife wardrobe of beaded necklaces and open linen shirts. I wasn't dumb. I wasn't blind. But I was patient. Because while he was out soul-searching, I was doing my own kind of digging. It started small, noticing inconsistencies in our statements, Venmo payments labeled with beach emojis and vague things like energy work. One night, he passed out after one too many bourbons, and I unlocked that precious second phone with his birthday. There she was. Lexi with an IE. Yoga instructor. 20 years old. Lots of universe is guiding us messages and far too many heart emojis for a married man in his 40s. But I didn't confront him. I smiled. I kissed his forehead the next morning. And I called my lawyer. I met with Camille, the toughest estate and financial attorney in King County, 3 days later. She looked at me, stone cold and brilliant, and said, "If you think he's going to burn it all down, let's fireproof your end." We moved fast. I restructured my boutique marketing firm under a holding LLC, mine alone. Redirected all income. Took out a separate insurance policy on every asset I had contributed. Camille coached me through freezing joint access without alerting him. I even created a decoy account to let him feel smug about clearing me out later. It was a slow, deliberate preparation for the moment I knew would come. And now, here it was. Delivered by text. Reed, running off with Lexi to California like some kind of bohemian life reboot. Honestly? I felt relief. That night, I didn't call anyone. I poured myself a glass of Malbec. Lit a cedarwood candle. And I started writing a list, titled, "Now That He's Gone." It began like this. 1. Change the locks. 2. Book the Maui retreat I've been putting off since 2020. 3. Buy the damn espresso machine I liked, the one he said was too much. That was the beginning. He thought he destroyed me in one move. But what he didn't know, I had already won. They say silence after betrayal is the loudest revenge. And for the next few days, I let the silence speak volumes. No messages. No calls. No cryptic social media posts or desperate attempts to reclaim my power. I simply vanished from Reed's narrative, and made sure I was untraceable in every way that counted. The truth was, I wasn't licking wounds. I was strategizing. I'd spent the last decade building Magnolia Rising, my boutique digital marketing firm, the one Reed used to call my little side project while he played portfolio manager. But my side project now had 4 full-time employees, 23 retainer clients, and quarterly revenue that would have made his jaw dislocate. And thanks to Camille, every dollar of it was legally fortified and 100% mine. Reed hadn't noticed the quiet evolution of my independence. He was too busy managing our investments and chasing his latest cleanse or crypto rabbit hole. When I started requesting joint financial transparency last year, he said I was creating drama. Now I knew why. A week after his text, a manila envelope arrived at my door. His lawyer had the audacity to send pre-divorce paperwork. Standard stuff. Division of assets. Ownership of the house. Spousal support. Spousal support. He thought I would pay him. I didn't even laugh. I was too stunned. There was something tragic about it. Reed actually thought I was the dependent one. That was the moment I realized. He never really knew me. That night, I went to dinner with Fallon, my closest friend since college. She listened, eyes wide, as I told her everything. Wait, she said, so he thinks he took all your money, and now he's living it up in Santa Cruz with some Gen Z moon fairy, and he's expecting you to fund the alimony? Correct, I said, sipping my wine. What are you gonna do? I smiled. Nothing. I'm going to let him keep living in the dream. Because eventually, he'll wake up. I heard whispers about his new life soon after. Apparently, he and Lexi were renting a 2-bedroom bungalow that smelled like incense and cat pee. He was trying to consult 4 tech startups, whatever that meant, and she was teaching yoga out of their garage. He'd post these blurry Instagram stories with captions like, "New era. Higher self. No drama, just flow." But you could always tell. Behind the pseudo-enlightenment and sunset filters was a man who knew he'd burned the wrong bridge. A man who hadn't realized that I never needed him. And now, without access to any real funds, not even the decoy account I left him, he was sinking. About 10 days after his first text, he called. Blocked number. I picked up out of pure curiosity. Juniper? That was my name. Juniper Vale. He sounded tired. That cracked, awkward voice men get when they're trying to sound casual but every word tastes like regret. I thought we should talk, he said. I might have moved too fast. I was feeling things. I didn't mean to blindside you. You didn't, I said evenly. There was a pause. I could hear wind ocean, maybe. He was probably standing barefoot on some rocky overlook, trying to summon the right words from the ether. I know this might be hard to hear, but I still care about you, he said. And I want to make sure you're okay. The words fell flat. They sounded rehearsed. Scripted apologies from a man who underestimated the person he betrayed. I said nothing for a moment. Then. I'm great, Reed. Truly. I'm doing really well. I let that hang in the air for a beat. Then I added, and I hope Lexi's trust fund covers your kombucha habit. Click. That was the last time I heard his voice. What came next was his storm. And I watched from the safety of everything I built, calm, composed, and ready for the next move. They say karma doesn't carry a clock, but she's always on time. 3 weeks after Reed's dramatic exodus, the storm hit, not me, of course. Him. It started with an email. Subject line, urgent, Reed Montgomery, account overdrawn notification. It landed in the old shared Gmail that he forgot to log out of. Yes, I still had access. No, I didn't tell him. I didn't need to. Watching him slowly realize what he'd done to himself was far more satisfying than any confrontation. Turns out, in his hurry to flee to California with his sun-kissed child bride, he forgot one crucial detail. Reed never managed our money. He managed illusions. Most of our investments were under my name, another boring legal formality he'd brushed off years ago. The brokerage accounts? Mine. The rental property in Spokane? My inheritance. Even the car, the matte black Tesla Model S he used to preen around downtown Seattle in, was leased under my LLC. The only money he could touch was from the decoy joint account, the one I left intact on purpose. He thought he was clever, siphoning the last of our liquidity the day before his grand escape. In reality? He took $27.53 and one bounce check from a landscaping service we fired in 2019. Camille and I watched with professional amusement as Reed tried, and failed, to file for emergency access to shared marital assets. He claimed financial abuse. He claimed fraud. He even tried to argue that Magnolia Rising was a communal venture. Camille shut it all down with the ferocity of a tax season demon. Every paper trail. Every timestamp. Every LLC filing was pristine. She even uncovered Reed's attempts to move crypto assets using a shady offshore platform, all while we were still married. Illegal? Yes. Stupid? Definitely. The judge was unimpressed. Then came the final crack. Lexi dumped him. Apparently, being aligned with the cosmos doesn't pay rent in Santa Cruz. And Reed, who once told me my budgeting spreadsheets were too corporate, had apparently maxed out 3 credit cards in 2 months, all on sushi, organic pet food, and a visionary men's retreat that turned out to be a scam in Joshua Tree. Lexi posted a reel. Her, dancing on a beach with a guy named Orion, hashtagging things like hashtag new beginnings and hashtag rebirth energy. No trace of Reed. I imagine she gave him the same kind of soft, spiritual dump he once gave me. Only this time, he didn't have a lawyer or a plan. Fallon called me the night we found out. "You're not gonna believe this," she said, already breathless with laughter. "Reed tried to sell your espresso machine on Facebook Marketplace." "Oh?" I raised a brow. "The one he said was unnecessary luxury?" "The very one. He listed it for $300 and called it lightly used by a barista-level professional." We laughed until we cried. It wasn't just revenge. It wasn't even justice. It was clarity. I saw Reed for what he really was. A man who needed someone to orbit around him, as long as he was the sun. But I wasn't some cold, distant planet. I was the gravity. And now? He was drifting in space, lost in the very freedom he thought he craved. Next morning, I booked my ticket to Maui. First class. Window seat. Paid in full by a business I built while he ignored me. And as the plane lifted off the runway, I whispered something only I could hear. "Good luck finding yourself, Reed." I already found me. Maui was like breathing for the first time in years. I arrived at the retreat center in Paia with nothing but linen dresses, 3 books I never had time to read, and the firm intention to not speak about Reed Montgomery even once. The center was quiet, lush palms, ocean wind, and the smell of hibiscus in the air. They took our phones at check-in. Digital detox, they called it. I called it a soul cleanse. Not the kind with celery juice and forced tears, but the real kind, where you sit still long enough to hear your own voice again. And that voice? She was ready to start something new. By the 3rd day, I'd journaled over 30 pages. Not about Reed, about me. About how I spent the last 8 years shrinking in the name of compromise. About how my wins were made small to protect a man's ego. About how I stopped saying what I wanted because Reed made everything sound expensive, complicated, impractical. But now? There was no one to shrink for. And with each sunrise yoga session, each barefoot walk along the shore, I began to feel something I hadn't in years, undeniable joy. I met women there who had been through worse. Divorces, cancer, loss, rebirths. We talked, laughed, meditated. Cried. Danced in the rain one night like teenagers. For the first time since I got that text, I wasn't watching my life happen. I was living it. Back in Seattle, the transformation didn't stop. I rebranded Magnolia Rising. New logo. New clients. Doubled our monthly retainer rate. No one blinked. In fact, we grew. I hired 2 more women. One was a single mom who reminded me of a younger version of myself. We started offering pro bono branding work for women leaving toxic partnerships and launching their first businesses. It wasn't a marketing strategy. It was a mission. Every time I signed a new contract, I remembered the look on Reed's face when I told him I wanted to go full-time with my agency years ago. "It's cute you think that's sustainable," he had said, not even looking up from his iPad. Now? 6 figures a quarter cute, Reed. One night, about a month after Maui, I ran into someone I didn't expect. Gavin Hale. Reed's former business partner, the one who'd quietly left their firm 2 years ago. Rumor was he didn't like the direction Reed was taking. We bumped into each other at a local gallery show. He looked surprised, then genuinely happy. "Juniper," he said, "you look like yourself again." I didn't know anyone could see that. But he had. We talked for an hour, about art, about business, about freedom. Not once did Reed come up. And for the first time, I realized I was no longer someone's wife. I was someone. Period. The best part? Reed had gone completely silent. No emails. No calls. No more Instagram quotes. From what I'd heard, he was crashing at a friend's place near Big Sur, working odd gigs, trying to realign. Fallon said he tried to pitch a podcast called The Masculine Awakens. It never made it past 2 episodes. I wish I could say I felt vindicated. But that would imply I cared. I didn't. I was too busy planning a West Coast tour for Magnolia Rising. Too busy mentoring women who once thought they'd never recover. Too busy falling in love with a life I designed for myself. And maybe, just maybe, beginning to open the door to love again. But this time, on my terms. I was no longer the woman Reed left. That version of me died the day he sent that text. What rose in her place? Was someone he wouldn't recognize? It had been 6 months since Reed left. Seattle was heading into early spring, cold mornings, cherry blossoms, the smell of wet concrete after a light rain. I'd grown to love it. Not for its beauty, but for its honesty. The seasons here don't pretend. They arrive boldly. Like I did now. That morning, I was heading into a brunch meeting with a new client, a wellness startup out of Portland, when I got the message. Not a text. Not a call. An email. Subject, "You win." I stared at it for a full minute. From reed.montgomery@me.com to juniper@magnoliarising.co. Simple. Sparse. And yet, so deeply him. Even now, he was trying to frame it as a game. A match. A score. Curiosity won. I opened it. Juniper. I don't really know how to say this, so I'll just say it. You were right. About everything. About me. About us. About Lexi, who, by the way, moved to Bali with a surf coach named Ren. I wish I was joking. I lost everything. Not just the money. I mean, all of it. Direction. Purpose. Whatever truth I thought I was chasing, it was just a prettier lie than the ones I told you. I thought leaving would free me. Instead, it broke me. I know I don't deserve a response. But I wanted you to know, I finally get it. You were never the weight I needed to drop. You were the anchor that kept me from drifting into the nonsense I now call my life. I hope you're happy. I really do. I sat there, blinking. Not angry. Not emotional. Just still. It wasn't an apology, not really. It was a confession. And for the first time since all of it began, I felt nothing. Not hatred. Not love. Not the urge to respond. Just peace. Because the real revenge? Wasn't the silence. Wasn't the legal wins. Wasn't even the fact that I was thriving without him. The real revenge was that he finally saw me. And it was too late. I closed the email and opened another, a proposal from a startup accelerator in San Diego asking me to keynote their Women's Founder Summit. Smiling, I typed, "Let's make it happen." Then I closed my laptop, grabbed my coat, and headed out into the crisp spring air, free, whole, and completely, unapologetically myself. He left me by text. But I answered without a word. And that, right there, was the last word.